There it is. What's up, guys? This is the fourth episode of Watch Me Work. And I seem to be getting the hang of Ecamm Live. What's up? What's up? I want to hear you guys in the comments. Say hi, where you're from. Uh, okay, so I just to go back to it, I've been using Ecamm Live for this program. Before I was using OBS and StreamYard. So Ecamm Live is like it's standalone um, software that for streaming that's exclusive for Mac, and it's been crazy. It's so easy to use. It's not free though, but it's been swell. But I have been trying to figure out certain things. Like for example, sometimes my mic would unmute during that countdown, or it would stay muted when I come in. What's up, Dong? How's it going? Good job on the storyboards. On curating the storyboards. All right, so welcome again to the fourth episode of Watch Me Work. Tonight is going to be a special night in the sense that what I'm going to share with you is very very important for me. Mainly because I consider myself more as a black and white photographer than color, which is ironic since most of my photos are in color because I shoot wildlife. But many people think that to convert an image from color to black and white is very simple, like a flick of a switch. In fact, it's not. Like this photo went through a lot of steps. It was a very complicated process to get it into black and white. More often than not, it's not just like you turn in black and white and that's it. So it's complicated, and I like it that way, I guess. All right, so this episode is again brought to you by Saramonic, the mic that I'm using now, and the mics that I have been giving away from free as prizes, and also by Nanlite Pavo Bulb, which you see right here. Dodong, I know your favorite color is green, so I'm gonna set it to green for. Let's take that cue and slate out. So let's make it green for the day. So I'm doing that using this amazing and easy to use app. So Dodong, the screen is for you. And at the same time, for those who are new here, I'm Noel Guevara. I'm a conservation wildlife, and you could say adventure photographer. I wear many hats, but I identify as a conservation and wildlife photographer. And if you haven't seen my work, please check out my Instagram, Noel Guevara Photo. It's it's right there. And also, please like way to again supporting this channel, and if you feel like you want to extend that sort of appreciation further, super chat is on and super thanks is on as well. You can see it right below the chat box, or the super thanks you can see underneath the video itself. So if you feel like you know contributing to my Save the Whales Foundation, just click those. All right, so I want to switch back to the photos themselves, right? So we're talking about black and white photos, and like what I was saying, it's not as simple as just flicking a switch. So let me share with you some of the photos that I've taken and why black and white matters so much to me. For me, black and white really stands out because one, it lends itself so well to fine art. It's also amazing in the sense that it's more visceral. I feel like it draws you in more. The impact is there. In at times, I feel like, well, you could say that color is a big game changer, and it makes it more real. Sometimes color could be a distraction. So this is a photo I took. I took this in color and then I converted it into black and white through a very complicated process. Well, no, actually, it's not that as complicated, but you can really feel the difference once it's black and white. Same with this one. This is one of my most famous or popular art prints that has sold so many times. Proud to say, Isa Calzado actually has one of these, and This sold really well also as an NFT. This sold well as a print. And this one in particular, this is a portrait of my friend Sabrina. This is using the third method that I'm going to describe later. So this one, this particular photo, it's portrait. It's very, outside my normal, you would say, expertise that I'm known for, which is wildlife and conservation. But this photo won at the Sony World Photography Awards twice in 1 year in 2016. One as, I think it got second place in the open category for portrait, and it won first place, I think, in the Philippines for portraits. So there really is something about black and white, and if you really want to do it, you have to do it right. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so I'm gonna go and head straight to Lightroom for this. So I'm going to talk about the first method that we do. So normally when you go into Lightroom and you want to convert something into black and white, you have the option panel on the right. So we have two photos that I want to show. One is this is an Arctic hare. And this was taken in Churchill, Manitoba back in 2018. Same with this one. It's a polar bear. Taken as well in Manitoba. So let us reset everything so that we have something to start with. So there, I will be going through three methods. And if it doesn't, there's no wrong method. You can go with whatever you feel like works. Okay. So going into something like this, that's color, you would probably think to just go straight to black and white. You know what? Let's pursue that approach. So when you go into black and white, the thing that you have to be considerate of, or you have to take into consideration, is tone. So usually in any frame, usually it's the lightest or the brightest in the frame that gets your attention first, and it should be your main subject. Or it could be the darkest part of an image, right? And that should also be the focal point or your subject. So in this case, obviously, the subject is the polar bear. And I would normally start with the blacks just to see where I can go. I would lessen the highlights to, again, bring out more of the details. And same with the blacks, just bring it down. And then bring up clarity for more contrast in between the tones. And then I would also raise the contrast, right? I dehaze it a bit. And then go into the tone curve. And give it a really nice S-curve, right? And you would think that that's done. It's not. So what I could pursue further would be, aside from the tone curve, would be the black and whites. So when it comes to black and white, you can also, each color also has an adjustment or an effect in black and white in terms of tone or luminance. So even if, for example, there is a red part here, I would, if you adjust it, you can see that nothing seems to be happening. But when you check the others, it's very, very subtle. But you can feel it right there. Okay. So you can use these sliders to further enhance some of the tone that's in your image. For example, if you want the grass darker, you can do that. And same with the orange, right? So one thing you would notice is that how come when you adjust these sliders, the white parts don't change? Well, the main reason for that is when, if you go back to your high school science, remember that the lightest part means that it has all the colors in it. So it doesn't really have that much effect. So here you can adjust the tone. Again, when it comes to black and white, what's important is the tone. So you want everything to have contrast. So we're trying to keep the polar bear as the brightest part of the image. So I'm trying to darken all the others. So normally what has an effect would be the RGB. So if you move the blue, you can see the blue sky go either dark or bright. Right? So when you convert it to black and white and do your global adjustments and then do your tone curve, your S curve, do not forget to go into black and white and adjust these parameters. And normally it's the red, the green that has an effect, and in a lot of cases it's the blue. Right? There. So that's how I would edit this polar bear. Right? How about we do it for the Arctic hare? Again, I will convert it into black and white. Right? It's not yet done. Let's bring down the highlights so we have more detail on the fur and the snow. And then shadows up, so you have more detail in the shadows. And then crush the blacks just to make it pop, and a bit of clarity to really have those textures come out. And let's go into the tone curve and give it a really nice S curve. Right. And maybe just have the blacks pop up a bit to make it softer. And then go into black and white, and you can go into blues and see what affects the image more. Maybe the orange or the reds. Doesn't have, remember the image doesn't have reds, so it doesn't have that much of an effect. But the yellow does, though. If you can see the here, it does have that effect. So you want that slightly darker. Right. And then go back to the basics and just brighten it up a bit. Okay. So that's how it looks in black and white, and brighten it up a bit. So that is usually the process. That is one process that you can take when it comes to black and white, and that's keeping within the ecosystem of Lightroom. So if you have any questions regarding that, drop them in the comments. By the way, say hi, the new people here. Please do like this video and say hi in the comments. I would love to hear from you, and would love to hear your questions as well. Okay, so that is one way to do it, right? Another way is, let's create a virtual copy right here. Okay. And then let's reset that so we have a point of comparison. So again, that's where we came from. That's where we are. So again, if you just converted it to black and white directly, it's like this. But if you follow that process, it's more, it pops out more. Okay, so another way to actually do this is to rely on a plugin. So how do you do that? You either go to Mastin Labs. So Mastin Labs is a very, very great plugin or preset wherein it gives you options that turns your photo into film stocks. So for example, if you look here on the left, I could choose an Ilford original, for example, which is one of the more popular black and white films. And you can select one, any of those, or you can go, let's say, across. So these are simulations. These are film simulations that try to simulate film, right? So in this case, we can go with Try X, which is one of my favorite black and white films. You can lower the opacity. The exposure. And then edit as you see fit. So again, these presets, when you work with any sort of presets, remember, they are just starting points. You don't necessarily have to, it's not drop it in and that's, voila, you're done. It's not. So again, you have to fix the tone curve. Let's see if it's to your taste. And just brighten it up slightly. So probably that's just how I'll adjust it when it comes to presets, mainly because I want to keep the look of Tri-X, and I'm just more of configuring the Tri-X Mastin Labs preset to conform with the photo. So this photo was done Again, this was done with Lightroom, within the ecosystem of Lightroom. This one was done with Mastin Labs, so you can see the difference. Let's do another method. Well, it's similar to the method of using presets. So again, we have this. Let's reset it. And what we'll do is we'll edit it in Photoshop. Okay, so we brought this into Photoshop because we want to use a plugin called Nick Collection. So I've been using that in the past few episodes, but they have an amazing plugin called Silver Efex Pro. I was surprised to find out that it's not just me who uses this, but a lot of other photographers here in the Philippines who use Silver Efex Pro to convert their photos into black and white. The famed documentary photographer VJ Villafranca also uses that. So in this case, you look for a filter that suits your taste. Okay. You can go with just neutral, or you can go with underexposed, overexposed, high contrast, and so on. So you could use a plugin as well to try and find something that fits your vision. And that's what's important. The whole point of post-production is trying to bridge how you see the image in your head and the photo you actually took. So there's nothing wrong with doing post to a certain extent, just as long as you are familiar and aware of the type of photo you're trying to get at. For example, I won't do too much photo manipulation if it's for documentary or reportage. But if it's fine art, you can do whatever, no holds barred. So probably what I will do with this is go with slightly underexposed, right? And just increase the brightness. And maybe up the contrast slightly to give it that oomph, and bring down the blacks. So on. Right. So that could be another approach. Of course, again, I'm abbreviating a lot of my processes here. Normally, this would take more than just 2 minutes. I would go through go through all of these sliders and try to see where it best fits. But again, this is another method of doing it. And then if you go to Lightroom, it automatically saves it there. Once it finishes saving right here, let's just save. And there you have it. Okay, so when we go to Lightroom, you have these different images so far. So this one was done with Lightroom. This other one was done with Mastin Labs with the Tri-X filter. And this one was done with, what does this do? Oh yeah, the Nick Collection Silver Efex Pro. All right. So I'll get to the most complicated method of doing black and white. And this is, again, the process that I normally use for fine art. So going back, this photo right here that I took in 2016 won in the Sony World Photography Awards for Best of Portrait twice, right? Open category global and then local here in the Philippines. And I even got Sony A7 II, I think, in exchange, right? So for this one, the process that I used was this one that I'm going to show. All right. So this method avoids Lightroom altogether and focuses more on just Photoshop. So we did one that was just purely Lightroom. One was at Mastin Labs preset. Another one was a Photoshop plugin. And this last one is just purely in Photoshop. So what I would do is, again, we have a raw file, if you remember, here. And then I just drag that raw file to Photoshop, right? And what happens is Photoshop opens the file right here. using Adobe Camera Raw. And from Adobe Camera Raw, you just adjust the sliders before you open it in Photoshop. Basically, ACR, Adobe Camera Raw or ACR is Lightroom's, is the Photoshop's version of the global adjustments for Lightroom. So let's adjust it. Okay. So again, I'll just probably bring down the blacks, bring down the highlights, up the shadows. Excuse me. Bring the contrast up and increase the vibrance. Of course, you want that vibrance to come out. There you go. There it is. And a bit of saturation. Clarity's up also. And contrast. Let's just take a, there you go. Okay, and then if you hold shift and open it, you can see at the bottom, it says open object. Because if you don't hold shift, you'll just open it as a file. So you want it to open as an object. All right, okay, here it is. All right, so now it's opened as a smart object, meaning that you can make adjustments to it, but it retains the original state because it's referenced as another object. So what you see here, if you open up Photoshop in the channels, you can see what you call the different channels. For example, if there's red, there's green, and there's blue. So what it is doing is it's showing you the different channels that appear as red. So for example, this, remember, when it comes to tonality in Photoshop or whatever, white means present and black means absent. So in this case, the white parts mean there's red, excuse me, there's red in those areas, which is true because white has all the colors. And then black means it has no red. So it means this one has less red than this one. In this case, if you look at the blue, right, it has a lot of blue here because it's white or lighter gray. And that is true because this background is really blue, right? And then if you go here, you can see again, the white has blue and the leaves actually don't, right? So what we're gonna do is use a process called channel mixer. So what's gonna happen is that when you go here to the bottom, and then you click here, in the options, and you select channel mixer, right? So let's say I want the blue of, I want the sky of the red. So what's going to happen is I can go to presets and select black and white with the red filter, right? Because I like that dark. Because if you use the sky of the blue, it's going to be light. So I wanted a dark background and I'll use red. But I just want the sky, right? So what we're going to do is mask it. I will invert this so you can see. And then I will just paint on the mask so that what I'm only getting is the white, is the blue part. Right. So again, I am doing this expeditiously, but normally I would take more, I would probably use a Wacom tablet to do this, right? Just to get everything. So again, I only want the sky of the blue channel right here. You may think that this is more complicated and this is just too much work. But the point here is that when you use this process, you get more control over your image itself. Okay. So again, I'm not trying to do this perfectly. I am just trying to get the blue part. I mean the sky of the blue channel. That's what I want to see. Okay. I'm just trying to hit all the blues that I can. Yeah. Once everything is done, your edges or your lines won't be seen anyway. Right. Okay. So that's one. Now I could also say go with how about here? Let's look at which version of the grass do we want to get. So do we want to get the blue, which is dark, or do we want the green, or do we want the red? So let's look at it. So we can have, we can have another layer. Sorry, I may have to make a correction here. Yeah, and just make sure not all of that is done. Okay. So we can again add another channel mixer. And this channel mixer now just looks at what you haven't corrected yet, or what you haven't painted over yet. So let's see which is it, the orange filter? Is it the yellow? Is it the red? I want the darkest. There you go. So it's also the blue filter. Oh no, wait, hold on. Red is the darkest. Green. No, let's go with green. I think green is better. Okay. So it's the same deal. You just paint over the areas of the green that you want to appear. Just like this. Okay. So I want that to be darker. So on. So basically, it's like piecing together a puzzle, adding another channel mixer, and then trying to look at which, okay, let's look at the trees. Which tree do we like? Is it the blue filter? Is it the green? Which one do I like? Is it the orange? Orange looks good. So we paint over that area with orange and just include it into the black and white image. We can actually start including the polar bear. Okay. And then finally, I know that I want to use red for everything else. There. So I will use red for the rest of the photo. Just to add a bit of pop. All right. So let's check it out. Let's compare using mixer and just a black and white photo. All right. So let's say I want to use black and white. Right here. So if I just use the black and white layer, adjustment layer, that's how it looks. But if I use the channel mixer, it has a more controlled effect as compared with the others. Or if you want to, let's say, change it, I don't want the blues. I want to include the blues of the grass. I can do that as well. I can just paint over the parts to make them more blue. Okay. So that's normally how I work when it comes to the different photos or converting everything into black and white. So while that seems to be very complicated, it is. It doesn't seem to be complicated. It really is. And it does take a lot of work to do this process. So normally, while I love it, and there are certain photos that actually demand this, using channels, using smart objects with channels in Photoshop is a very taxing way to achieve an image, but at the same time, it's the one that gives you the most control. Maybe I'm gonna have a special episode that just focuses on this. Maybe I'll make it a members only. It's really intensive, just going through the different parts of using channels and using smart objects. So at least I covered that, at least in broad strokes. So again, this is how it looks, right? Edited in Photoshop, edited with Tri-X filter and using the Mastin Labs. And then this one using Nik Collection Silver Efex Pro. So on a regular day, which one do I actually use? I would have to say it will be Silver Efex Pro because it's the fastest. For example, so again, this is the Arctic Hair, that we edited. Let's create a virtual copy of this, reset it, and then let's bring it into Photoshop and use Silver Efex Pro. Here you go. So, caveat and full disclosure, while my photos have been featured by Silver Efex Pro and DxO as a whole, it doesn't mean that they're paying me for this video, or that this video is sponsored by them. It's just that I really just use this process. Okay. So to convert it, there are presets as well. Okay, for example, underexposed, overexposed. I like this underexposed because it brings out the texture of the image, and all it I think needs is just to brighten it slightly, and those blacks not to crush them so much. And we can add more of that fine structure. There. And then that's it. I'll probably amplify the blacks a bit. There. So while I'm not telling you to purchase Silver Efex Pro or DxO, I'm just gonna tell you that if you have this in your bag of tricks, it goes a long way to improving your image. There you go. So that's Silver Efex Pro and the original, and let's flatten it and save it so that we can see it. In Lightroom so we can compare. Okay. Okay, so this is the original. This is done in Photoshop and Lightroom, and this was done in Silver Efex Pro. We can play around with it slightly, just increase shadows to make it more slightly appealing. Oops, vibrance. And just add some more clarity, just a tad, just a drop. And there it is. So if you look at it closer, you can see the fur come out as compared to the other photo wherein it was a bit more muted, right? Okay. And that is it for their episode, and let's talk about the questions that you may have about this process. I do apologize if it seemed like I was rushing through these images. I had to keep the flow going, so just so that you can compare each method to each other. Again, there's no right or wrong. I sometimes would just stick Lightroom, but lately I just have been using either the channels of Photoshop or probably a bigger chunk of a bigger chance would be to use DxO Silver Efex Pro. So that's how I normally do it. So again, let's look for questions. If you have any questions on what we did, from Bricks, how often do you use black and white? As often as I can. I love shooting in black and white. It's how I see. You know how they say that sometimes you see in black and white or you see in color? I see in black and white. I always look for the tones, the shadows, the highlights, and for some reason the color just comes secondary. And that's how I frame my subjects or try to highlight the subjects or the scene. I look at it in black and white. In fact, if I have a color photo that I want to edit and for some reason I can't figure it out, I would put an adjustment layer in Photoshop to make it black and white or convert it first to black and white in Lightroom. And that's how I troubleshoot. That's where I look, okay, what are the problematic parts or what I want to highlight, what is my vision and so on. And then bring it back to color and process it accordingly from there. And normally it just solves the problem right off the bat. So converting to black and white is not just an end, but also a means to an end. Okay. So we have a lot of people here. Again, please, if you like this video, please hit that like button. I'm really gonna appreciate and love it. Yes, any other questions in the audience if you have about black and white or what you encounter in terms of problems in black and white? Maybe we can figure it out. Black and white as fine art is absolutely beautiful. I mean, most of my work now in print, I rarely offer for sale prints that are in color. Normally, I just have black and whites for print. I don't know. It's a personal choice, but I feel like they jump out of the frame or of the wall more than just plain color. Again, black and white just lends itself a lot more to fine art than color does, right? So, or probably it's just me. I just see everything in black and white or absolutes. I don't know. Let's put some music. What else do you have to consider for black and white? Sometimes it also helps if your black and white image, you try to see if there's a function of your camera to actually convert it to black and white. You can also try to do that. Having two versions, your black and white and color image, also helps you determine which one works for you. I always see this happen in groups wherein you ask which is better, color or black and white, and then they have people rate it. At the end of the day, though, what matters is what resonates with you, and that is what you should use. Right. So it's been a wild week for me lately. I'm not sure a lot of you know, but I was a director, or I am a director by day and a photographer by night. So I do direct commercials, and I've had a long shoot yesterday, and then I have two more tomorrow and the next day. I'm very, very thankful that I get to do this. And when it comes to videos as well, I love shooting in black and white. It just carries over across all the media or the mediums that I handle or work with. Right? So yeah, I'm very glad to show you my photos again from the Arctic or the subarctic. Lately, there has been some sort of news that everything that the heat waves are really going wild. Global temperature is shooting up, and these polar bears are like the canaries in the coal mine. They tell if these polar bears perish, if global climate continues to rise, these polar bears are the first to go. Right. So again, being very conscious of our carbon footprint goes a long way. So a bit of cool trivia, is that these polar bears in general, are amazing hunters. They can actually smell 6 feet down under the snow. So for those prey that are hiding, but usually their main source of food would be those ice seals. So here in Churchill in Manitoba, we went there in October. So as the lake started to freeze, or Hudson Bay started to freeze, these polar bears are just waiting to get on the ice, because when the seals are on the ice and they go into their holes and then they pop up, these polar bears lie in ambush waiting for these ice seals and then grab them and, eat them. So that's how they feed. If the global temperature continues to rise, chances are ice will never form in the sea. And by the extension, that means there won't be ice seals on the ice, and the polar bears won't be able to feed. And that's why they are the most vulnerable and at risk when it comes to climate change. So that's a bit of trivia from a conservation photographer, and basically why I do what I do. So again, please this very complex process. For our next episode next week, I'm going to probably tackle something lighter, probably how to edit photos with your phone. I was able to use the iPhone, the latest iPhone, the 13 Pro Max, and it was an absolute pleasure to use. So for the next one, we're gonna edit some of my photos from an adventure trip. I'm still deciding whether we should do it on Lightroom or do it on Lightroom Mobile on my iPad. But yeah, thanks for being here. And again, thank you for coming here to watch me work. Appreciate it. I love these sessions, and these keep me alive every week. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode.